Hey, globes and robes, let's get it started, ha! Hey everybody, my name is John, and welcome to ADITW, A Day in the Word, the internet's favorite Bible study. Things are getting bad, y'all. Things are getting real difficult. It's getting hard for our boy Nehemiah. Read chapter 5, verses 1 through 13, and find out why. So up until this point, things have been looking pretty good for Nehemiah's little construction project. He's in charge, everybody's lending a hand, they're building and fighting at the same time. But then all of a sudden, there comes an outcry. Nice outcry. There is trouble in paradise, people. Nehemiah set out to rebuild the walls at Jerusalem to protect from outside attackers. But this onslaught is internal. The poor people in Jerusalem have begun to grumble about the rich people in Jerusalem, and they're doing this for two reasons. First, the wealthy landowners have been collecting interest on loans that they gave to the poor people. And second, those same wealthy landowners have been selling their poor brothers and sisters into slavery. Now, obviously, these two evils do not really sound equal in our eyes. A little interest, selling people into slavery. But what we have here is not just your typical the advantaged exploiting the disadvantaged. The rich people of Jerusalem here are expressly violating laws that God set forth through Moses in Leviticus. In Leviticus chapter 25, God instructs his people, "If your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, you shall support him as though he were a stranger and a sojourner, and he shall live with you. Take no interest from him or profit, but fear your God, that your brother may live beside you." And then in verse 39, God says, "If your brother becomes poor beside you and sells himself to you, you shall not make him serve as a slave. He shall be with you as a hired worker and as a sojourner." Now, there is a really good point to be made here, I promise you, but you're gonna have to follow me. Let's zoom out for a second and remember why Nehemiah wanted to rebuild the wall in the first place. The people of Jerusalem, the Israelites, God's people, have been displaced. They have been exiled to foreign lands by God specifically for not keeping his laws. Laws like the ones we were just reading concerning treatment of the poor. And when these Israelites return to tattered, broken Jerusalem, Nehemiah doesn't want to rebuild the walls just to protect from outside invaders. This project that we've been reading about is not just about building a wall. It's about restoring God's people. It's about these Israelites returning home to inhabit a new Jerusalem, not just with its walls, but to finally become the type of people that God created them to be, the type of people who live in full obedience to and fear of their God. Nehemiah's dream is so much more than just a physical construction project. He is praying, he is hoping, he is working for a remodeling of the soul of a nation. That's why Nehemiah is so upset in chapter 5. The rich nobles are oppressing the poor in the exact ways that God told them not to. They may have new walls, but these people still have the same disobedient, self-centered hearts. And of course, before we go and judge them, I can't imagine how often we do the same exact thing. We can put up this pretty, moral, Christian outer shell, but on the inside, there has been no change in our hearts towards God or towards others. And this is God's hope for all of humanity, that we would be the type of people who, out of fear and reverence for Him, live and lead with love and kindness and goodness towards every person we come across, poor or otherwise. This is part of the reason why God sent Jesus, who Paul says, though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you, by his poverty, might become rich. You see, Nehemiah's dream for a new Jerusalem it eventually came true. God's hope and desire for a devoted covenant people was finally accomplished with Jesus on the cross. In Jesus, not only do we have a living example of what goodness and kindness and compassion towards the poor looks like, but we also have access into God's presence. Through his blood and through his sacrifice, we can now live in the New Jerusalem. The only question is, will we live as the New Jerusalem? Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this episode of ADITW. We are almost halfway through this book of Nehemiah. We have one more week of this study, and then we're going to take a brief intermission. We're going to be doing a Q&A episode, so make sure to comment down below with any Bible questions you want me to answer in that episode. I'm really excited for it. Also, if you didn't know, I started a podcast several weeks ago. Make sure you go and you check out the podcast. It's in the description. It's called the Joncast, full sermons. Please leave a review on that podcast. Subscribe to that podcast. That would be awesome. Also, make sure to follow me on the Instagram at Jon Jorgenson. That's all I have for you. I love you all. Keep being awesome.